Scotch on the shelf. It's not going to drink itself.
Greetings, class. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are going to be your pilot and co-pilot as we talk about creative real estate investing, protecting your assets, different strategies to use to make sure that you go out there and do the right thing in your real estate investing business. My distinguished guest this evening is Clint Combs, real estate attorney. I like to look at you as an investor first and then you're an attorney. But I don't know how you see yourself, though. So I'd like you to kind of unpack that because the last time I talked to you, Clint, you were telling me how attorneys give you such a hard time in this thing.
Yeah, well, they say I'm not a real attorney most of the time because I don't go into court. I said that's the whole point. You know, what I do is I keep people out of court so they don't have to find themselves in a situation where they never want to be to begin with. So, yeah, I guess by that barometer, I am not a real attorney.
I love it. I love it. So Clint is here tonight just to talk to all of us because I run in my travels and coaching and training and stuff. I keep hearing Clint. It's like this recurring record in my head. I can't get into real estate or I can't buy multiple properties in a year because I'm not able to qualify for a loan. Could you just unpack that and tell us what that looks like through your goggles?
You know, that's because so many people fall in the traditional mindset of buying real estate, that you have to go down to a traditional lender and you're going to go through that process where they're going to evaluate you based on your credit score. They're going to evaluate based upon your income, you know, your ability to qualify for a loan. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the route you want to take, working with conventional lenders, going the traditional route, then yeah, you could run into some issues there. But the thing about creative financing that a lot of real estate investors who've become very successful that I personally work with, that are clients of Anderson, they all start out in the same place, creative financing, going out there, finding the individual's issues and then solving those issues, and then using the financing to help get the deal done and across the finish line. And so that means thinking outside of the traditional box. So ask yourself who you're listening to. If you're listening to your local attorney, your CPA, your parents who bought real estate a certain way, it's not that those are incorrect voices to seek guidance from. It's just that they don't understand it to the same way you do, that I do, and that there are ways to put portfolios together. So you need to start looking for those opportunities, and they're out there. And I talk to people all the time that are doing it.
Well, Clint, what is there just a resistance? For me, I was forced into this life, right? I had foreclosures. I started in 2004. I had so many foreclosures on my record. I had no other choice. It was either go down the creative way or get out of the business. There was no option for me.
So
is it the resistance that you're seeing, Clint?
You know, I just think it's lack of education. I'll give you a perfect example. This week, Monday, today, I received an email from an individual. I'd created a land trust form, set up an LLC as a trustee, and he wanted to close on a piece of property in the name of this trust. Well, he's all upset because his lender will not close in the name of the trust. And this was closing today.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, all right, wait a minute. Have you ever heard me say that you can close in the name of a land trust with a conventional lender? I never say that. And why are you so frustrated? Because you didn't hear what I was telling you along the way when it came to putting your deal together. And B, why are you waiting until closing to tell your lender, oh, this is how I want to take title. I want to take title of the trust. That conversation should have been handled, 30 days ago when you got the property under contract and you're working with a lender. Hey, this is what I want to do. And then we could have ironed out the details.
That's strange you say that, Clint. Whoever that person was, I'm presuming they heard what you were saying, but they were kind of filling in the blanks of what they kind of wanted to do themselves. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Hearing me, but not listening. When I sometimes refer to it.
Clearly something. So guys, we would love to answer questions. I want to let Clint go on this thing. We're talking about creative financing. I have a saying, Clint, he who understands creative financing over the next 5 years is going to crush this business. What would you say to that statement?
I would say whenever you can use other people's money to put the deal together, you're going to be in a better position than when you're having to go out there and seek traditional financing. When you're using creative financing, as you know, because you've been doing this, it just creates a lot of different opportunities for you because you're stepping outside and you're solving, like I stated earlier, other people's problems. And there's going to be a lot of problems that you're going to be solving, coming up here in the near future where people are going to be struggling. Um, Inflation's up. Uh, People don't feel like they're in a comfortable position. Are there going to be possible layoffs? Maybe. And so people are going to be losing jobs. And so they have interest rate mortgages. How can you get them out of them? Or get them out of that property and put them in a better position. And that's why understanding what your options are, creative financing wise, and working with the individual, understanding how hard money lenders work. I had a phone conversation right before we jumped on here. That's why I was late, talking to an investor in Texas, working with an HML to put together his first deal that he's going to turn into a DSCR loan after he seasoned the rents for a couple of months, which is the way those things work. So knowing what your options are, or we actually have clients that I never used to be a fan of it, but now I see the potential where you can go out there and you can get loans, cash advances on cards. Some people will get up to, $80,000, $120,000, 0% interest for 16 months. You take that money. Say you got 80 grand. There you go. That's the seed money you need to go out there to help set up those creative finance deals. If you're working with someone who requires you to have, they want a larger down payment, but seeing those options and having yourself, see, this is the thing that I tell people. You want to be in a position so when an opportunity comes along, you can take action, right? And if you're leading from behind, meaning that you're never there ready to go when that opportunity comes, if you haven't addressed these issues, financing, knowing how I'm going to talk to the individual, how to set up the structure the right way, how to set up the conversation the right way. I mean, the things that you teach, right? If they're not a good student of that and they know what they're going to do, they're probably going to miss out on the opportunity because someone like you is going to come along and say, "Hey, you talking to that bloke? I got you covered."
Well, Clint, I'm my friend the other day called me an empath, right? I didn't even know what it was. I have no idea like what is this? I so do some research. I really take the energy from my community, and I'm thinking I hear it everywhere I go. I'm like, well, I'm waiting until X. I'm waiting until I do this. I'm waiting until my credit. I'm waiting to get qualified. I'm waiting. I have to come to the realization, Clint, that I have had to stop absorbing that energy and stop replying to that. It kind of go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. What is it telling you when you hear that?
I feel like it's so. I learned a term called conceptual incarceration. We are incarcerated by the concepts that are swirling around in our heads. So I can't help everybody, but I'm just thinking all we do is buy real estate based on concepts. Whether you think the concept is a traditional loan, go to the realtor, do an application, that is just it's all just been created out of thin air, all of it. So which one do you think is real?
Boy, I also know it does this. When you absorb too much of it, it causes hair loss.
You know, that's why I'm an empath. I need Clint. You're going to help me. Help me stop absorbing this
Look
mess.
at that, man, right? I don't listen to it. I'm like a duck. It hits me, rolls right up.
I love it. You know what? I need to do better at that. So could you just break down for the few that don't understand just what is buying a piece of real estate subject to? Is one of my favorite ways to buy. I just want to make sure people understand coming from an attorney. What's your definition, Clint?
Well, I mean, like I said, you're using other people's money. So when you're buying a property subject to, ideally what you're doing is you're taking over that existing loan on the property, right? So it's not your money, it's the bank's money. You're just stepping in and you're not using your credit. So you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to satisfy an obligation that individual homeowner was struggling with to satisfy on their own. So you're solving a person's problem many times in these situations. They're just happy to walk away from that and let you take it over. So when you buy property subject to, you're buying it subject to an existing mortgage. And here's the thing that's so important here. I was responding to a comment about 6 months ago on my YouTube channel. And this guy, upstate New York, said he went to his local attorney to put a deal together, subject to deal. And he lost the deal because his local attorney told him that that type of transaction is a tantamount to mortgage fraud, and that it was essentially illegal and that he
Oh,
couldn't do it.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he lost out on this opportunity. And I said to myself, okay, if I had that attorney on the line, the first thing I would ask him is, how do you reach your conclusion? This investor is not on the mortgage. He's not obligated under anything under contract with the lender. So where's the privy of contract? What gives rise to the action? How has the lender been defrauded in any way that my client or this investor would be part of? And they'd be hard pressed to answer that because they don't understand the transaction and what's really what someone's put.
That's deep, Clint. Well, thanks for breaking that down. You got anything? I know you got your little thing there. Do you have any example or any type of flow chart you like to write down when you're teaching this stuff, Clint? I know you're a master at that stuff.
Well, typically, what I would do, just so people understand in the subject to transaction, what that looks like, right? That you have this property right here.
Y'all give plenty of thumbs up for taking the time to do this. Go ahead, Clint.
Yeah. So you're looking to invest in. And so what I like to do with these types of deals is we're going to set up this entity right here. It's called a land trust. Is that backwards? Oh no, it's straight on.
It's straight.
Yep. So you're going to set up a land trust. You're not going to typically take these deals down in a limited liability company at this point in time, even though mortgage rates have started to go down. If you saw one of my videos or came to our presentation, years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I would have been telling you use an LLC. You could probably get it done. Now, banks are looking at these types of transactions and they're studying them because, say this homeowner here has an interest rate of 3.75%. If you had to refinance that today, maybe with that as an investment property, you're talking 8.5%. So a lender, would be looking they look at property transfers. So we have to be very careful there because what they're analyzing in these transactions a lot of time is change of insurance, change of address, for mortgage statements, tax statements, things like that, right? And who's on title. So what I'd like to do is set up a land trust. And, I go back and forth depending on where you're at. Sometimes they'll even say use the lend or the owner's last name in your trust. So if this was, Bob Smith right here, maybe you call it the Smith Trust, right? So you've done that. Where do you think I learned it from? So, so I steal stuff, right, from other people too. They're great ideas because as you were talking about, sometimes as attorneys, we do tend to let our legal training get in our way and we find reasons not to do something. And we come up with these ridiculous excuses. Oh, well, that could be considered not to be fraudulent, but misrepresentation. And I was sitting there thinking about it one day after I watched one of your videos, like, that's just stupid. Stop thinking like the attorney here on that issue. So yeah, if you use the Smith Trust here, and we have the client listed as the initial trustee even. Now when you transfer title from Bob Smith to Bob Smith as trustee of the Smith Trust, if a lender looks at title, they're going to assume, hey, Bob Smith set up a living trust. They don't know that this is actually a land trust because the trust itself is not recorded in a private document. But the reality of the situation is that we have Clint down here as the beneficiary. So I'm the beneficiary of my trust, which means I'm the owner. And I'm set up here as the successor trustee. So what we do is we have this individual resign, and then I step in as the successor trustee on this trust. And no one knows this. So if everyone's looking at title, all they're going to see is Bob Smith, Smith Trust, and they'll never see Clint.
Wow. That's a beast move right there, bro. Y'all give him a thumbs up for that. That's a beast move.
It works. When you do it that way, I mean, so simple.
That's a beast move. Thanks for putting that together. Y'all give Clint, give him a smash up the like. Get your questions in the chat and let me know where y'all coming from here. Please let me know where you're coming from, what city or state you're in, so we can know who is in the Roundup family this evening. Clint, can you do on land trust? Can you do successor beneficiaries too? I ask a personal question.
You could. I don't draft them that way, but you could set them up that way because typically we're going to take that land trust and have it owned by a limited liability company for asset protection purposes, because if something goes wrong with the property, I don't want to be named personally as the beneficiary in a lawsuit, because they're going to sue the trust and they're going to sue the beneficiary. So oftentimes what we'll do is we'll have the LLC as the beneficiary for asset protection.
Hmm. Okay, so for the new investor, if they're taking over this debt, I know we wanted to discuss kind of how you do it. Is that going to be in a nutshell, kind of like the tip of the iceberg when we're getting started for the asset protection purposes for buying subject to properties, Clint?
What was that, taking over the debt?
Yeah, is this what you just showed us? Was that kind of the macro when you're buying
Absolutely.
subject? Okay.
For those types of transactions, yeah, that's typically that. If when you're buying subject to, every single one of my clients here at Anderson that we work with, when this word subject to comes up, the first thing we say is, this is a land trust, hands down. And if somebody tells me land trusts aren't recognized in my state, don't listen to those people. They don't know what they're talking about. Land trusts are
Break it
recognized in
down,
all
Clint.
50 states, right? Yeah.
Break
I've
it
done them
down.
in all 50 states. So you're telling me as an attorney, they're not recognized. I've done it. So,
Could you explain that a little bit for the people? Because obviously you're going to be getting that backlash. Well, you're already getting it. So
so here's what they do. They're not recognized. Well, because your definition of whether or not a tool such as a land trust is recognized is based upon the state statute. So that means if your state doesn't have a statute governing this type of instrument, then you can't use it. Well, there are a few states, Illinois, Virginia, and Florida, that have a statute that addresses the creation of land trusts. Now, those states chose to codify a law, means take what is common law, which recognizes this type of trust, which is a grantor trust, and put it into a statute. So yeah, these trusts here that use formerly under common law, which was then, basically, if there's any questions of it, you go to the courts, and the courts then decide how that trust works. Well, we want to remove any uncertainties, so we're going to actually put a statute together. That's the purpose of statutes. Remove uncertainties and create a set of instructions, essentially, that everyone can follow. Florida went one step further, and they actually provide asset protection for beneficiaries of land trusts. So they're unique. So you take those three states and you say, all right, they codified it. But everyone else, they still have access to this tool. It's still recognized under common law as a grantor trust. You can create a trust on the back of a napkin. It doesn't have to be anything special to create the trust. It's the provisions that determine the rights of the beneficiaries, the obligations of the trustee vis-a-vis the beneficiaries of that trust. And so setting them up, when people say they're not recognized here, it's because they don't understand that just because it's not in a statute does not imply you cannot use this type of.
Clint, we got a little bit of an audio issue with you. I don't know what's going on. Darn it. Y'all, could somebody let me know in the chat if y'all can hear Clint pretty good? Y'all let me know if you can hear Clint pretty good. We're gonna keep going here, Clint.
Sure. If I talk a little louder, does that help?
I don't want to put you. Somebody say that. Sounds good. Loud and clear. Okay, everybody's saying you're loud and clear, Clint.
Okay, great.
Get your questions in the chat. But while you're here, Clint has a free asset protection and tax workshop coming up. The link's in the video description. We're going to keep going. But Clint, you want to tell them real quick what that is, and then we'll get back to the training.
Yeah, so our tax and asset protection workshop that we teach every Saturday, typically, is a great event. It's a one-day event, all full 8 hours. And what you're going to learn is strategies around real estate investing from using entities, land trust, LLCs, corporations. And I break it down, showing you, all right, in this situation, this is the type of structure you want to use, and here are the benefits of structuring it this way. And so we go through that for the morning where we cover all that. And then in the afternoon, we're going to build upon the legal side and say, hey, if you set up this base structure, that's just the starting point here, because now we can start generating tax savings. So we'll show you how you can use business entities to reduce your taxes as well. And so we spent several hours just talking about the tax benefits of real estate investing. The best part about the event, in my opinion, is not just listening to myself teach. It's about the people that I bring to the event, meaning I have my attorneys there from Anderson are there. We have tax professionals that sit and answer Q&A. When you have questions that come up, well, Clint mentioned this, but I'm doing this with my investing. How does it differ? That's where you get the real benefit because you're able to actually speak with knowledgeable or chat with knowledgeable individuals who will delve into your specifics.
That's a Q&A. So that's this Saturday, y'all. The link's right below. You just click on it and it'll take you right there. And it's free. Clint, how do you guys do this for free? I was thinking about this today. I'm like, how do you do this? It's truly amazing.
Well, I mean, from this event, we do have an offer for people who want to start working with us. And so we give a great offer. We call it our business essentials to get started with us. And it includes a lot of the core services that Anderson offers. We break it down for a minimal investment just so that people feel, all right, let me try on Anderson to see if it's a good fit for me. And heck, we even give you a money back guarantee. So if it doesn't work for you, we'll give you your money back. But that's how, we drive clients that way because what they're going to learn, what people have learned from working with Anderson, we're all about education. I do not hide the ball. My grandfather was an attorney for 50 years.
Really?
And when I started practicing, he said, you're never going to make it.
He told you that?
Yeah, he did. He said, you don't even know what you're doing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you give everything away. He said, you can't give away that information because clients will take that information and do it on their own. And so his idea was you bring a client, a client comes into your office and you only give them a little bit of information, not too much that they feel confident they can handle on their own. So you control that situation. But see, he has a different way of doing things. He built his business, as most attorneys, based upon billing clients on an hourly rate. We don't do that at Anderson. All right. There's no hourly rate when you're working with us. And so what we found is that by educating someone, explaining everything, even if they understand exactly how to do it on their own, most people realize, hey, my high value work is not setting up land trusts, trying to demystify this. My high value is spending time learning how to put a subject to deal together and going out there and actually doing the deal. Wow. Because if you're trying to set up entities on your own and you're trying to figure all that out, be upfront with you. What you're essentially doing is saying, I don't want to do the deal. I'm going to find an excuse not to go out there and try to find a subject to deal. Rather, I'm going to invest my time in trying to be an attorney, figure out land trusts. People are out there cutting deals every day. You're not part of that group. And so that's what I mean by low value, high value. Don't waste your time doing that. And we found that that's how people, they evaluate us and they see the sensibility in that. And they like the fact that we don't hide anything. Like, well, if you want to learn about this one strategy, you got to become a client. I'll tell you all the strategies.
Clint, that's so funny. I'm laughing as you're talking because it took me 3 years. 3 years
Figure that one out.
to figure how this stuff works. And that is why I like to bring you on here because you are going to help my people get light speed down to this entity thing. Clint, 3 years, dude.
I get it. It happens. Don't sit there and go, oh man, I'm just a loser because I've been doing this. We all fall into that trap. I still do things I should not be doing, as my wife reminds me all the time. Okay. She's like this weekend, I don't think you should be crawling under the RV to try to fix what you think is an air leak from the air suspension. I looked at her and I said, what about the life insurance? She said, good idea. Why don't you get under that RV?
Round up, give Clint a thumbs up. We're going to keep going here. If you got questions, put them in the chat. I see we got IG going crazy.
We got a lot of questions there.
Clint, I should have got your, anyway. Somebody's on IG wants to know, does Anderson offer tax planning? It's Joe Noble. Do you offer tax planning, Clint?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. And I tell people when you start working with us, tax planning is part of what we do at Anderson. So if you're not familiar with the firm, we have domestically 450 employees, internationally around 60. So we have offices in Dubai, Cayman, Singapore, wow, Italy, France, UK, Switzerland, Hong Kong. I think that's where we're at right now. So part of in working with us, is that we analyze your activities from an asset protection business planning point of view, but we also look at it from the tax planning side. And then if you want to engage, with us handling your taxes, we have out of the 450 employees I have domestically, probably around 175 are just on the tax side of our firm, in addition to the attorneys that we have that you will have access to tap into to work with. Yes, we do.
But don't forget, guys, Clint is also an investor. Clint
Yes.
has real estate. The man is not just out there talking on a talking head about real estate. You got commercial too, Clint, or just residential?
Commercial, residential, multifamily, mobile home parks. Yep. We flip real estate. We flip probably 2 properties a month in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Noble says, my aunt, who is a tax attorney, tells me everything is impossible or illegal. That sounds about right.
Here's what they'll often say. You did that for tax motivated reasons, and that's not acceptable. I'll tell you what, I bought my first personal residence for tax motivated reasons, and that was to get a mortgage interest deduction. The tax code is written to incentivize you to engage in certain activities many times. Figure that one.
Hearing that this comes from the attorney, I'm like, don't believe me. Glenn, how would you make the math work with seller finance and mortgage? Seller wants 300K, mortgage balance 220, mortgage payments 1,300.
Well, I mean, first off, what have you run your numbers? Are you going to be able to cover the mortgage, taxes, insurance, all the expenses associated with the property, especially if it were to be, you got some one turn in there during the year. Do a great inspection because you never know what your CapEx is going to be. Okay? If you buy right, it's fine. But that is where you step in because it's all in the negotiation then. I mean, they may want that, but it doesn't mean they're going to get it. That's what you have to convince them of. Hey, here's your problem, and here's how we're going to solve that issue for you. And that's the best I could say on that one. It all comes down to negotiation.
Well, Clint, let's keep going on this creative thing. We buy creatively and sell creatively, right? I'm like, I don't even want tenants calling me. I mean, so I'm just thinking, even with Glenn. Clint, do you find a lot of your clients or people that are in your community want to be traditional landlords? And could you just talk about the difference in the two? Like people that sell on lease option, land contract for deed versus traditional landlords?
Yeah. So what I found is that a lot of times clients that I work with, they start with creative financing.
On the buy or on the sell?
On the buy and on the sale, right?
Okay.
They'll do both. And then as they start to generate more income, you find that they start to then transition, I've seen, into buy and hold traditional. So, or if they find a deal that's a great deal that they know they can cash flow this deal, it's going to require very little maintenance on their side, and there's a lot of built-in equity. They end up start carving those off and building a side portfolio with those deals. I mean, when I started investing, one of the things we were doing was flipping real estate. And that flipping real estate turned into holding real estate because we would pick up deals and we're like, you know what? I think this will make a great property for our portfolio. So we'd move it over. And we just didn't stay in that flipping mode because just like creative financing, you're out there, you're always hunting, you're finding the deals and you're putting them together. And so the thing when you transition to passive cash flow just from rental real estate, a lot of times you sit back, you go to the beach, right? You're still getting paid. Not having to do anything. So it's a mix of both.
That's a good point. So every investor is different. Well, let me ask you, but do you see different, regarding this selling on contract for deed or land contract, which one do you see more of? And do you have any recommendations for either? Or are you a proponent of both?
So, I'm a proponent of both. I find that the land contract sometimes can create additional complexities in the transaction if the other side brings in counsel to help them review it. It can be perplexing for them if they're not accustomed to it. So, it just really depends on who your buyer is, or if you're
On the buy
buying.
side.
Yeah, on the buy
On the buy
side, who the seller is, um,
Yeah.
how that works. I said the opposite, yeah, that way. So, and we've done them both, and I don't really have a preference one way or the other.
Yeah.
One thing about the land contract, I think if you're on the sell side, that's always a concern, is that you're still on title.
Okay.
And if something were to happen, I mean, and somebody's injured on that property, maybe they're running a meth lab on it, burns down, kills someone, who's getting named.
That's nasty.
Mhm.
So you're still on the buy side. Yeah, I guess. Well, my mentor has 170 of them, Clint. That's what he does. I wanted to kind of hear your take on it. He's got insurance and all this stuff, and seems to work for him. And then I see some other guys that love doing traditional things. They love taking calls and going to do repairs. My mentor doesn't do anything. He just buys them and he just sells them off on contract for deeds, same thing. And then he's just out of the deal. And he never gets a call.
You see, the only risk in that, if you're buying and then turning around and selling them on contract for deed, technically that's flipping. And if you get tagged, in that case, if you're flipping property, you get tagged as a dealer by the service, then those land contracts, those installment sales, basically, because they'll consider it to be a sale. They'll take all of that income and they'll say, all right, well, your total profit here is $50,000, right? You bought it for 200, you sold it for 250, so your profit's 50 grand. I know it's going to be paid to you over the next 20 years with interest, but you need to recognize the full 50 this year.
Yeah, that's nasty.
So that can be an issue. So you just got to be careful there.
Don says, how do you take a property that you bought in your LLC out of your LLC? Poor thing. Why do I do that?
So typically the way we remove properties from limited liability companies is we use the land trust. I just dropped my pencil. Grab it.
Take your time, brother.
Okay. So
hit it.
In a
Y'all give
situation
him a
like
thumbs up. Y'all give him a thumbs up. He's taking time to do this stuff, man. You guys are super busy. Hit it.
All right. So
smash that like button.
My pencil's on. I'll use my finger. So if I had a property inside of this entity like this, and this is an LLC, and I want to get that property out of the LLC, I'm going to create a land trust here. And what I'll do is I'll transfer the property from the LLC into the land trust. And the beneficiary of the trust will be the limited liability company. Now, remember I told you people will tell you land trusts are not recognized other than a few states or the state in which they live in. So I hear this even in California. I've done so many deals like this in California, thousands of them, where people have property trapped in LLCs. And what we'll do is we'll set up the trust. And the reason why we structure it this way is twofold. Number one, transfer taxes. I don't want to get hit on a transfer tax. So in order to keep the property from be reassessed, I have to have the beneficiary of the trust, be the entity that owns the property. So that's why I structured the LLC as the beneficiary. Then we deed the property in, we send a copy of the trust to the assessor's office. Say, hey, this is a non-reassessment event here. Or in another state, maybe it's a taxable event. It's non-taxable because the beneficiary is the same. So they look at it like, yep, you're right. Once that's done, we then take that beneficial interest and we'll transfer it over to the other entity that they've set up. So we'll move that entity over, and that's a private transfer. So no one will see this transaction right here because it's not recorded anywhere. Property is recorded up here in the trust, and wherever that trust goes, no one knows at that point in time. So the land trust is how we solve that issue.
Clint, you are, wow. If y'all are not getting some value, Clint, in essence, you're selling it from yourself to yourself. Well, I won't say selling it. You're transferring it from
you just transferred it. Yeah.
Transferring. Exactly. Sorry. Yeah.
It's a lot, there's a lot of investors that have done something like this where they have a few different properties stuck in one LLC. And I'm thinking, wow, I really need to get some of this liability reduced because I have too much at risk in case something goes wrong. So we'll step in and we'll say, all right, well, let's create two land trusts, pull these two properties out, and then we'll move the trust over to a different structure. So now you only have this one LLC left right here with just one property.
Man, this is some juicy stuff. This is good stuff. Are y'all guys enjoying this? Are you guys enjoying this? Oh wow, Don, how do you? We got another one. Don, how do you create land trust to purchase slow flips with, and do you need an attorney to do so? That's just contract for deeds. We kind of went over that before. Same thing. It's the same. Clint, that's the same. I mean, we just went over. We're gonna go over that one again.
So if you say a slow flip,
Contract for deed.
yeah, or a lease option.
Lease option. Yeah. Ron Brown, Los Angeles. How do you secure and guarantee the payments being made to the lender under substitute transaction?
Well, if you're the seller, I mean, how do you guarantee those payments are going to be made? Well, obviously, if you wanted to collect the payments, but I'm a buyer, I'm not going to send the seller the payment that's going to get sent to the mortgage company. Because you could set up an escrow if you wanted to do something like that. But as the buyer of that, I'm going to be paying the mortgage company directly because I want to ensure that that mortgage is being timely paid and the seller just isn't pocketing the money and not covering the mortgage. Because if that happens, then they're going to foreclose on the property. And then, yeah, I have a claim against the seller, but
They
it's
were
gone, off in the wind.
How do you guarantee the payments? That's the big thing people are worried about. I'm like, how do you guarantee they're not being paid? I mean, I just think people overthinking it, Clint. I mean, you make the payment and you go down the street.
Yeah, well, you're right. So that's a matter of negotiation with the seller. Let's say in a subject to transaction, I'm giving the seller $10,000, $5,000, whatever it is. So you have to ask yourself, would I, I'm risking money. If I don't make the payment, then I'm risking money that the bank's going to foreclose and I'm going to lose this property. Where's the incentive for me to do that, to lose that property by not making that payment? It's not a lot because I'm going to lose my money if I go down that road. Money I paid you.
Shit, Clint, we're giving them 25,000, 50,000, 80,000. I mean, it could be anything under the sun.
Right.
And I mean, when you're giving that check, I have yet to have a seller say, how do I know you're going to make the payment? I'm giving them 50 grand. It hasn't even come up at closing.
And actually, the risk is many times for the buyer because if the seller files for bankruptcy.
Let's talk about that, Clint. Talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if the seller files for bankruptcy, then the bankruptcy court can step in and pull the property back. That's why you need to establish, comps, that what you're paying, for this type of transaction, pretty much, comps out with what someone else would pay or what the property's worth, because the bankruptcy trustee could step in and say, all right, you bought it way, way under market. It's a preferential transfer. And therefore, I'm going to set aside this sale and I'm going to reclaim the property. So when you're going into that, you want to be documenting your file. Say, hey, you've looked around and here are 3 homes and here's the average value of what they're worth. If you're within 10%, 15%, it's not going to be an issue. But if you get outside of that, say you find a deal and it's 70% below market, you're going to have some little risk there from the bankruptcy.
But what about Clint? We're talking about fair market value. I'm buying them roof caving in.
Correct.
Documentation. Conversation.
Yes. Pictures. Hey, this place was a wreck when I got that property, right?
Mm.
And so then you can show them, hey, fair market value for this property. What is that worth with everything you just described?
Got it. Thanks, Clint, for that. That's a good one. How you looking on time, Clint?
I'm looking good. And so that actually comes. So I have a good friend. He's a bankruptcy trustee here in Washington State. And this past summer, we were out golfing. I brought up the question because one of my clients was buying property using creative financing. His concern, he says, I'm a little worried about the seller filing for bankruptcy because I
This
know
particular one here, that one,
which one?
that one deal, or this is all deals? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
This was one specific deal from a client.
Okay.
And so I when I happened to be golfing with my buddy who was a bankruptcy trustee here in the Western District, he just ran me through it. He said, here's what you need. Make sure your clients are doing the following: showing what the value of the property is worth, documenting any problems with it to substantiate the discount and valuation of what they're paying for the property. And if I was presented with that, I'm walking away. But if I see a situation where somebody comes in and, that property, if I go out and I look at it and I say, hey, that property is worth $400,000, you paid 200 for it, that just doesn't work for me. All right. So then I'm going to seek to rescind that deal, take that property back as a preferential transfer. So you have to show, you can, document pictures, things like that. Did you?
Clint, I didn't know until I was in the business for some time that the power of these bankruptcy attorneys, dog. These fools are could you just break it down? Just give us a little macro on that, with the power that they have.
Yeah. Well, their power is to get any asset they can for the benefit of the individual's creditors. And depending on the transfer, I don't know the exact days. I know 180 days is one on certain types of transfers, and it might be a year on others. And it also depends if it's a federal or state. So they have the ability to rescind all types of agreements, take back assets. Unless you can show that it was a good faith transfer for value.
Y'all hear that? This is coming from the man, y'all. So document this stuff. So now I'm going to start doing this too, Clint. Well, I already have pictures of stuff, but I need to have a full construction list before we get rid of it, before we start doing the renovations.
Yeah.
Just in case. Guys, go in the link in the video description. Hang out with Clint. 8 hours. How many hours is it this weekend, Clint?
8 hours.
8 hours with the man. Boom, 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 going down, breaking all this stuff down. This is not good stuff. So this Saturday, and it's free.
It's free. It's dynamic. I mean, you saw me drawing on this blackboard here. That's how we teach. We get in there and it's just not a bunch of boring slides you're going to listen to. I'm looking at questions that are coming in. I'm going down certain paths that I see there's a lot of interest in. And I'm just riffing the entire time. Hey, let's talk about how do you do this type of deal? All right, now I see some people want to learn about how do you flip real estate. Okay, we're going to transition over there and we're talking about what that structure looks like. Oh, if I'm doing a residential assisted living, so we cover a lot of different areas of real estate investing and how to set up the business appropriately to make sure you're reducing taxes. And it starts with asset protection. I say, all right, you got this structure in place. Let me show you a way in which we can just add one more entity on top of this. And now you're putting all this money back in your pocket. So just by using a couple entities together.
Thanks, man. That's cool. Danielle, Clint, do you review trusts?
Mm-hmm. We do.
Got that, Dawn. Oh, we did that with Ron. Got here. No issues with the audio there. So many stuff. Somebody here says you're doing all of his business entities. Cool.
Nice.
That is cool. He came 10 years ago. Look. Somebody came to you. Who is that? Lord Sonic. Thank you. That's a nice little testimonial there, Clint.
That's awesome.
Kenny, what would you say to somebody like this, Clint? I need to get everything out of my name. I need to put it in the trust. That was me. Oh, Lord, that was me back in 2007, dude. Just buying stuff. But it is better, Clint. I want to ask you, it is better to buy something and then clean it up later, as opposed to just sitting back and not buying anything. Correct? Is that right? Is that okay? I don't know.
Okay, so first thing I tell people that are investors when they're getting started, do not let your structure dictate your deal. Okay. If you've got a deal, I don't care if you don't have an entity set up. If it's a great deal, you take that deal. We'll fix it after the fact. Yeah, there's a preferred way of doing it, but if you don't have that in place yet, get the deal done, and then we'll transfer it into an entity. I can't believe how many people I've heard to come out before and say, "Oh, I have this great deal, but I didn't have my LLC or my trust set up, so I had to walk away."
What?
Yeah. I felt like saying, listen, I'm not going to set up an entity for you, but when you find great deals that you have to walk away from, give me a call. You know? And so, yeah, you talk about anonymity. I was reading the Wall Street today, and there's big articles on the, well, I call it the front page. It's on the web on my iPad.
Yeah.
And it had to do with real estate purchases in Miami. Who's buying up all this property? And I took a picture of it because it works great for what I teach, is how you can own real estate completely anonymously. That, you can be like these individuals, larger investors that are buying, hundreds of $1,000,000 of real estate, and Wall Street Journal cannot figure out who actually owns it. They were speculating. So I'll show you the way to do it on a much smaller scale, but it's the same principle.
That's cool. So Kenny, what I learned years ago, you heard Clint's thing. My mentor said, go get a check first.
Yes.
Get a check, dog. And then Clint can help you clean it all up. Like, it can always be cleaned up.
Mhm.
Everything can be cleaned up. But if you don't have a deal and you don't have nothing to put it, if you don't have something to put in it, it's irrelevant. It's just irrelevant.
So that's a great point you just bring up. So let's say I want to get started in creative financing. Do I need an entity to start creative financing? Absolutely not. You tie a property up, and you get that deal done with that seller, and you got that property tied up, and you've reached an agreement there. You can bring the entity in at a later date. Say, hey, this is how I want to close. You don't need to lead with it. And sometimes, maybe it's the best way to do it too. I've seen investors, and I've made this mistake before. I'll go in, I'll make the offer in the name of the entity, working with a unsophisticated investor or property owner and they see that and they think, oh, I'm just trying to steal their equity in the property, trying to do something. So sometimes, getting to know the individual a little bit before you bring up the structure, I've found, just from losing deals, can be beneficial.
That's a good point, Chris. I mean, Clint, you're saying, I'm thinking to myself as I was going to deploy it. I'm like, if I'm Joe getting a divorce or whatever, and I see just a regular guy by my house, might be less of a mountain to go over as opposed to We Buy Houses Incorporated.
Yep.
Man, Clint, you talking tonight. No, this is good stuff. I'm thinking about the one I just put in the contract. I should have just put my name. Dude, I should have just put my name on it.
And or designated entity. That's how I like to do.
Clint, that is so good.
And here's what you tell them. Do you ever get pushback from someone when it says and or designated? What's this other language in here? The way I refer to that is I don't walk through the details with the seller at that point in time. I just explain, listen, my CPA, because I'm already an attorney. I say, my CPA has asked me to put this language in there because from a tax planning standpoint, he wants to make sure that we take title the best way for me to avoid or minimize my taxes. Now, you could also spin that. I tell our clients, you can say your attorney has said they're not sure how they want you to hold it in your investment portfolio for estate planning purposes. The better one, don't use the investment portfolio, because I've seen people use that before. The problem with investment portfolio is now you say, hey, I'm an active investor, and they could draw this connotation that you got a lot of money. Just say for estate planning. I want to make sure that my kids get this the right way. We don't, so we're trying to figure out how to ensure that if something were to happen to me, long term.
Great point, Clint. And you can always do that before closing.
That's
before
exactly
closing.
Right. Yep.
This is such good stuff. So look, y'all, Clint is having the class this Saturday. We got a million questions here, Clint. I'm trying to figure out which one to take, man. Ron says, thank you so much. Always great information from Clint. That's right. He is the man. Exemption. Oh, it's a question here from No Shay. Marietta, Georgia. Buying a house in a LT for personal. How to get the exemptions from the county? Could you get the homestead exemption with that?
Yeah. Well, okay. So first off, if you're going to set it up that way and you're going to treat it as a personal residence, you want the exemptions. You have to structure your trust in a specific manner. You can't use a typical land trust there. We have to use a residence trust because in a land trust, legal and equitable title are typically held by the trustee. When it comes to a personal residence, to ensure that you qualify for the exemption, we have to bifurcate the equitable and legal. So the beneficiaries hold typically it's going to be the equitable title in the property. So you qualify for the exemption. Now, the way I do it is I create a living trust initially that we submit to the county, and we provide that. Then if I tend to use this property as later as an investment property, so they get the copy of the living trust. Now, with any type of living trust, you can amend that trust and restate it at any time. So then after we've got our deal done, we then restate the trust and we turn it into a land trust because it's going to fit into our portfolio of what we're doing.
Wow.
I did one of these deals 4 weeks ago, actually less than that, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago for a client where we served, well, actually my son, he's an attorney now, he does this. Well, he served as a nominee trustee. So our client bought a piece of property, said Carter Coons, Esquire, trustee of this trust, and title said, hey, to get this deal done, we cannot close in a land trust for you on this transaction. It won't work. So what I did is I said, well, how about this? And we just sent him a new trust that looked like a living trust with Carter Coons as a trustee. Will you close in this? And they said, oh yeah, that's fine. We can do it in that type of trust because they weren't familiar with the land trust. So sometimes people will walk away and say land trusts don't work. No, that's fine. So they're not familiar with it. And again, it was one of those things where I said to the client, why didn't you have this conversation earlier for the week of closing and now you're showing title of your trust?
Yeah.
But anyways, you changed it. Now we just changed it back to a land trust. So these things you can move around and, if they need to see it a certain way, we'll make it a certain way. And then once we get our things done, then we turn it back the way.
Clint, let me ask you, since I do have you out, I'm a little, I had to put a shameless plug for myself. I've got one attorney in my town does not like paying checks to the beneficiary. And I don't know how he gets all these damn closings, Clint. It seems like every house I'm selling, not every, but a lot of them is going to this one guy. So I had to record, not had to, what I did was I recorded a deed of trust against the property to pull the money out at closing because he wants to write the check out to the trust. So could you just talk about attorneys that refuse to write checks to the beneficiary of a trust, and what do you I don't want to say recommend, but what can you suggest as options for that?
Okay, so that's not well, typically you're going to see that with title companies. I'm surprised you're running into that with an attorney.
Me too.
So I will tell people who invest with land trust, do your closings with an attorney, not a title company. Because title companies are pretty set in their ways and they're going to send it to the trust name. Mm-hmm. So my solution, because I've been in that situation before where I have used closings with title companies, out-of-state closings, didn't know an attorney there, was just simpler for me to do it. They send the check to the trust. Now, I don't have an account set up in the name of the trust. So instead, what I'll do is I'll make a DBA filing for my LLC. So let's assume that my trust is the Butterfinger Trust. So if I have Red Squirrel LLC doing business as the Butterfinger Trust, so I record the DBA, and then I take the check plus the DBA filing down to Chase Bank, a perfect example of this. I give my DBA. They say, all right, so now your Red Squirrel's a Butterfinger. And I say, oh, by the way, I got a check for Butterfinger.
Yeah, wow, that's over.
That's the easiest way to do it, I've found.
Thanks.
They're going to push back on you.
These guys make it hard. I feel like last time I interviewed you, you told me you always have problems with attorneys. I feel like, and you're an attorney. What in the hell?
Yeah. Well, there's a way you deal with that, when you struggle as an attorney, Xanax. with an Ambien chaser.
Oh my Lord. Round up, join Clint this weekend. I need to hang out with you guys too. Somebody says, you two together, I like the video, 20K. I wish I could watch it 20 times. Thank you guys. Clint makes it easy on me. Clint makes it easy on me. Ebing, how do you title the property on deed when buying the house in a land trust? That's a great question. That's a
Okay,
good
so
one.
yeah. So here's how you're going to title it in the name of the trustee. So it would say Carter Coons, trustee of the Butterfinger Trust. That's typically how it's going to be titled when you take title on a piece of property inside of a trust. So that trustee's name is going to be there. This is why when you're you're using subject to deals, putting those deals together, why putting the seller's name on as trustee initially is important to that transaction. Because when the seller is listed on there, if someone pulls title, even if you don't use the Smith Trust, you don't need to do that. You could still use the Butterfinger Trust. But let's say I was buying from Joanne Watson, I would put Joanne Watson, trustee of the Butterfinger Trust. And then I'm going to get a resignation from her. And of course, I'm going to have a POA from her. And I'm going to step in as the undisclosed trustee. And I'm also going to have a trustee's deed prepared at closing from her to me as the successor trustee. So I've have myself on all those positions. So I'm ready to go if I want to sell that property, if I'm not treating it as a rental property and I want to sell it at some point in the future, or actually I would be renting out, but let's say when you're ready to sell, what I'll do is I'll record my trustee's deed and I'll take her name off and put my name on for purpose of sale, even if it has an existing mortgage, because then I don't care. I'm selling the property. What are they going to do, right? Oh, we're going to call the note due. Don't worry, I beat you to the punch. You're going to get paid off in 30 days. So in that manner, now you have the authority. Title looks for the buyer. They're going to say, all right, well, where's Joanne? Oh, well, she's no longer here. So it creates problems for you. But then your name will pop up by recording that trustee's deed and deal with you. So that's an important part of doing these types of transactions, making sure you have the right documents that can be filed at the appropriate time. So you do not cloud title and tie up your closing selling.
Yeah. Deborah said, what's a DBA?
Doing business as. So you can operate your business under multiple different names. And all you have to do is record it either with the city, county, or state. Depends on where you're doing it. Most times it's either county or state level where it gets recorded.
Yep, and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. Clint, what about passing on land trusts? Is that I heard you vaguely talk about it. You don't necessarily do successor beneficiaries. What are you got
Have a
other
living
ways
trust.
of living trust?
Put it all in a living trust.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, Clint, that's all I got, man. How do you create land trusts? Yeah. Do you need an attorney? That's what, yeah, we'll let Clint answer that. How do you create one of these things?
Should use an attorney.
At
least to create your first one to see how it's done. I mean, I've told people, again, high value, low value work like we talked about. I know that I've set up trusts for people before and they'll take my document, and they'll copy it and just scratch it out because once they realize they're looking at it, go, I could probably do this on my own. And for the most part, you're right. There are some nuances for certain states that the language needs to be in there, but if it never gets challenged, it's never going to be an issue for you to do that. But on the first couple, yeah, you want to make sure that you're, trustee's deed, you see all the stuff, the way it should be drafted the right way and the certifications of trust that go along with that. So you can then go and put deals together with confidence.
My thing is the concept. It's the concept, the trustee, the whole title. It took me so long just to understand the whole concept. I think you unpacked that so well. And for people to kind of go, it's not like you're not writing the Constitution, I mean, and if we can do it, obviously it can be done. But it's the concepts. How does it flow? Who does what? Who signs here? What are you responsible for? What does he do? I think that's what you actually helped me understand too, Clint. Watching your videos, it's just the concept of how it flows.
Yeah, and the thing about it is when we're doing the work for the client, and they're a platinum client, as I stated earlier, they don't have an hourly fee. They run into an issue with a title company or some other third party, and they have this trust document. A lot of times what they'll do is just call us up and say, hey, can you get on the phone with this person and help get this deal done for me? Because
Wow.
they're not listening. And
Wow.
you get on the phone with them. Now they're talking to your attorney, and the misinformation that they're disseminating that's tying up your deal, we can pretty much untangle that and set the deal straight. Doesn't take much, 5-10 minutes.
Last question. We'll get you out of here, Clint. David wants to know, to avoid the due on sale. I need to cut some. Everybody's work. Clint, I just
That
find
would be good. You need that.
so many questions, and it's nothing against David. I mean, a lot of things in our minds when we haven't done these transactions. Do you think, Clint, a lot of stuff just runs and it swirls all night? It just doesn't happen, dude. It just doesn't. From my experience, to avoid the due on sale clause from being called, can I legally bind a trust with the seller as the beneficiary recorded and then assign it? Before you answer, Clint, can you just explain what the due on sale is and then get to this for my roundup family that doesn't know?
Yeah. So the due on sale clause allows a lender to accelerate the mortgage whenever there's been a title transfer. So when you own property and you transfer property that you currently own into your own limited liability company, for example, if you have the lender discovers that you move property into an LLC, they could accelerate that note, call it due, force you to refinance at a higher rate. Now, if that mortgage is a Freddie Fannie mortgage, it's underwritten by Freddie or Fannie, and they own it, no, you can transfer it in all day long and they can't accelerate. Because under their lending guidelines or underwriting guidelines, that is an acceptable transfer. Now, if your mortgage isn't owned by them and you're concerned if you put it into the LLC that someone would accelerate, then you use a land trust. Because the land trust is viewed as an estate planning vehicle, a grantor trust. People don't know it's a land trust. They assume it's your living trust. And so when the lender looks on title and they see a trust there, like, well, it hasn't been transferred to a business entity. We're still secure, still owned in a trust. So they think that you're still the responsible party and they're comfortable with that. Now, when we step outside of that context, any transfers to a third party, which is what you would do in a subject to transaction, seller to buyer, that's going to violate the due on sale clause. And that's going to give rise to an acceleration. So as the buyer, the way I try to minimize that risk is to set up the transaction so that if a lender looks, they do not assume, they don't think that there has been an actual transfer of that asset to a third party. And that's why you use the land trust, because it obscures what is actually taking place. And so if the lender wanted to push forward, they could definitely push forward and they would eventually figure that out. But in my experience, they don't do that. The only time they move forwards is if somebody reaches out to the lender and says, all right, well, for now, I'd like all tax statements sent to, Kevin going forwards. And it used to be owned by Tracy. Tracy was the owner of the property, but now we're sending all the tax statements to Kevin and the mortgage statements to Kevin. Kevin lives in South Carolina. Tracy, where the property is located, lives in Tennessee. Makes us say, wow, what's going on with this type of transaction? So that's why understanding, you do a great job at teaching all this, understanding how you structure that is really important, because you don't want the bank to get wind of the fact there's been a property transfer, because they're going to think, oh, well, I don't know that bar or who's now responsible for the mortgage. They may not be able to repay. The reason I got involved is because the first guy was probably struggling to repay. So better off working with me, because I know how to make sure the property cash flows. So you are getting them.
Yeah. Good question, David.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Clint, does this keep you up at night ever?
No. I found the way to prevent that. Right there. I got a nice Scotch collection.
Guys, if you are, my whole thing is, if you are worried about the due on sale clause, you should not be buying subject to. This shit's gonna keep you up all. You're gonna lose your mind if you're worried about the lender. I've had lenders knock on my door because I bought my personal. I've had inspectors come. They sent insurance. Yes, I was scared. Nothing happened. No, and there is no subject to transfer department that they're going to continually go looking, and there are no police that are looking for these. They're just not looking. If the pay the mortgage, Clint, do you find if the mortgage is paid, then you have less issues?
Yes, 100%. Mortgage being paid and making sure the insurance company,
Insurance.
that the seller is still listed on the policy.
There you go. We're gonna get out of here. Clint, thank you so much. Oh, Deborah's one of our channel members. Do you work in New Jersey?
We work in all 50 states now. The problem with New Jersey
Uh-oh.
is with deeding properties into trusts. And so that's one of those states where a lot of times what we'll do is use a living trust first, because you talk to title companies well, typically it's attorneys there that handle the deeds in New York. They don't know what to do with them. So what we've done is we just set up a living trust and transfer it. That we do it in what looks like a living, then trade. But if it's a private transaction, you're handling on your own. That's not so much of a concern. But if you are using an attorney, different way of setting.
Is New Jersey is an attorney state and New York, Clint?
I believe so, yes.
They're both.
I know New Jersey is for sure.
Oh boy, those damn attorneys! I tell you, man, they just sucking up all the closing costs. All I'm paying for book. It's just ridiculous.
Job security.
That's not funny, man.
You can let them in. Yeah.
All right, guys. So listen, we're gonna get out of here. This has been asset protection, buying creative real estate. My favorite way to buy. Stop worrying about. Don't be in conceptual incarceration, thinking that there's only one way to buy. Clint, isn't it? He's a real estate attorney, and when people say, my favorite statement, people come to me, Clint, you can't do that. What do you say when people come to you and you say that? Do you help them, Clint, or do you just say, I don't know.
If somebody tells me they can't do it, if you went to a professional and said you can't do it, I say get another opinion, right? Okay, because they're finding reasons not to do something. And the reason why they typically say that is because if you're not up on it, you're typically down on it. So that's the safest answer.
I like that. All right, Clint, thank you, brother. I'm gonna let you get out of here, and we'll see you Saturday. What time do you start on the workshop?
9 a.m. Pacific.
Pacific time. So okay. So guys, get signed up. It's free. You're gonna hang out with Clint all day, his whole team. You got a Q&A, ask them all the questions you want, and get informed. Don't live by old concepts. I'll never forget when I first started. All I knew was traditional real estate, traditional loan, getting mortgage broker, all that stuff. It wasn't until I had a bunch of foreclosures that forced me into a life of creative financing. Now I'm able to hang out with guys like Clint that's been doing this forever and kind of help me direct which way I should be going to. So thank you so much, brother Clint.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
See you soon. Round up, subscribe to the channel, like this stuff, share this, please. The only ask that I have is that you share. You have no idea how much it is an honor. It is an honor for me to hang out with just major players in the game. Clint works in 50 states. He's got an office that's got attorneys and tax people. I don't know where he's based out, but he does all around the country. He's helped me tremendously, and he's helping a lot of my Roundup family do this stuff. But if you are stuck with the concept in your mind that you need to go get a loan, turn in a bank application, use your credit, deal with your mortgage, your bank statements, turn that stuff in. If that's the concept in your mind, let today be the day that you say, you know what? Nope, I'm not going to do this anymore. I will at least understand. And it is, from my perspective, it is your obligation. It is your obligation to at least have an understanding of how real estate works, because you're in the real estate business whether you like it or not. I had to come to this sobering realization, dog, back in 2004. I never forget. I was working in P. Diddy's, the old Puff. I was working at Puff Daddy's studio, right? It was called what was the studio called? Damn, I was at the Hip Factory, and then it was Daddy's house. I was working it was in New York at the Hip Factory, and then we went to Daddy's house. And in 2003, I came to the realization that all No matter how many hit records I had, no matter how many songs that I could produce, no how many beats I could make, every time I had to record a track or lay down a track or lay down some vocals, I had to do it in somebody's studio. And that was going to be inside of some real estate. That is how I changed my mind from going from the music business to the real estate business. I'm like, damn, everywhere I go, I never forget. I went to another studio. It's called Electric Lady, Jimi Hendrix studio. Anybody in here been to? No, I didn't go to a P Diddy party. I was not. I was not. They. I've told my wife frequently. They try to get me to those parties, but it was just too much. I'm gonna be frank. Too much alternative lifestyle there for me. I just couldn't. I'm like, I'm heterosexual. I need to just. That's just my thing, right? I'm not mad at nobody, but I like the ladies. Shout out to all my ladies. Electric Lady was Jimi Hendrix studio. If you don't know who Jimi Hendrix is, he is one of the greatest musicians of all time on a guitar. I think he played left-handed. It was crazy. I walked down this dude's studio, and as I was walking down there, you do feel yourself becoming electrified going in these studios. And it was, I never forget, Teddy Bishop was working on Whitney Houston stuff. I could go stories and stories for y'all. I'm like, this is Teddy Bishop. He did Dave Hollister stuff and working with Aaliyah, the song. He did a couple songs with Aaliyah. And I'm in the studio, I'm watching Teddy Bishop work. And I'm like, you know what, dude? Every one of these fools, they were super producers, but every one of them had to have a studio somewhere. So I made it a mission of mine to say, and I haven't even shared this before, y'all. I had a mission. Like, forget this music. These fools, all of them got to come to answer to the real estate guy. You can make all the beats, all the vocals, make all the drum kits and all the bass lines and keys you want. But at the end of the day, if you ain't got no studio to lay this shit down in, you done. Right. So that's when I turned from a music guy. I've got all these records. I got platinum records and gold records and working with Dave Hollister 702. You know, our first big joint was with 50 Cent. Shout out to Jay Praise. I've been there, made money. And I know that at the end of the day, if your ass ain't got no real estate, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be constantly paying rent to somebody for the rest of your life. So that's why I'm here today, bringing on the experts to help you just as they have helped me. Okay. So get signed up, get your stuff set up properly, break out of those conceptual incarcerations in your mind and get some new concepts in there, moving around. And even if you know this stuff, it's good to be reminded from time to time, including me. That's why I keep guys like Clint coming on. Thank you, Gershwin. Thank you. Good luck. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, Gershwin. Deborah, thank you so much. It is such an honor. It is such an honor working with you guys. And I will see you on the next video. Get signed up. And we got Black Friday coming, y'all. Black Friday on the way. Make sure there's another link I'll put. You better be on my email list so you can learn some of this stuff and take advantage of all my stuff on Black Friday too. I'm going to get you straight. It's an honor to serve you. I'm going to be a good steward of your attention and your education. Much love to you, Round Up family. Peace.